name is Martha. I was good friends with Jesus when he was still living on this earth. You've probably heard of Jesus before, and you've probably heard of all the good things that he did. But I have to tell you a little secret. One time, I got really angry at Jesus. Maybe you're shocked to hear this, but I'd like to tell you about it, and I'd like to tell you why I got angry and how Jesus responded to me. I'd also like to tell you how I came to understand his response. I think maybe my story will help you understand Jesus better and also understand yourself better. Well, at the time of my story, Jesus was already famous. He used to travel around on foot from one town to the next. Often he had his 12 friends with him. We called those 12 friends his disciples. All of them were men. But Jesus also had a lot of friends who are women. In our time and place, it was difficult and dangerous for women to travel freely, so mostly we stayed at home. But Jesus still liked to talk with us. He would come over to our homes and sit with us and hear about our lives. He would tell us about the one true God and about forgiveness and hope for eternal life. We really appreciated that. You know, sometimes men don't take women very seriously. They think our minds are only good for children and cooking, but we also want to know about God. We also want to understand the value of our own lives. So we really enjoyed Jesus' company. And we were grateful that he took time for us women too. Well, one day we heard that Jesus was coming to our town of Bethany. So I talked to my sister Mary. I should tell you right away that there were a lot of women named Mary in our area. My sister Mary was not Jesus' mother Mary, and she also was not Jesus' friend Mary Magdalene. My sister was just Mary of Bethany, like I am Martha of Bethany. Anyway, my sister Mary and I discussed Jesus' upcoming visit. I hoped he would stay with us at our house, and I would make him a nice bed to sleep in and cook my very best dinner for him to eat, and then we'd have the best chance for a nice long conversation with him. My sister Mary agreed with the plan, so we worked for several days to get ready for Jesus. We cleaned the whole house from top to bottom. We tidied up the garden. We picked ripe fruits from the tree. I got a nice piece of meat to roast, and I made dough for beautiful round breads to bake in the fire. We washed all the bedclothes and the curtains, and we restuffed the pillows with fresh soft wool from the lambs. Our house has never looked so good. But maybe you've had that experience of getting ready for a big occasion and you plan too much. You just can't get ready in time. Maybe it's for a holiday or for a vacation. You thought you had enough time to get everything done, but as time gets closer, you realize, you're not going to finish in time. And then you get really stressed out. You try to move faster, but then you start making mistakes. Sometimes you even create more work for yourself. Well, it was like that in the last hours before we expected Jesus to arrive. I was moving so fast, trying to make everything so perfect, clean, shiny, and beautiful. I decided that meat and fruit and bread weren't enough for our dear friend Jesus. So I started more things cooking. Beans and vegetables, honey and cheese, and I realized we were almost out of oil. Maybe we wouldn't have enough wine. Was there going to be enough clean water for Jesus to wash up with? Then he arrived. I was a real mess. My hair was crazy, my face was dirty, and I was so tired. I'd been working nonstop for 3 days. I don't think I even slept at night, as I kept thinking of all the work that had to be done. I wanted everything to be perfect for Jesus, just perfect. But my sister Mary, she was relaxed. She was calm. She looked just fine, and she'd slept well at night. She welcomed Jesus with a huge smile. I'm not sure that I smiled. I think I was just too tired to smile. I led Jesus into the house, and he was gracious and kind, happy to be with us. But all I could see was what I didn't get finished. I forgot to clean one of the rugs. I should have brought more clean water for him to wash. I got distracted in the garden, and as a result, the bread burned in the oven. I was angry and ashamed of my mistake. I knew I'd have to make a fresh batch of bread to replace the burned bread. Suddenly, I wasn't so happy to have Jesus in my house. He's so much work to prepare for, I thought. How will I ever be good enough for him? He's too good for me. He will see all the mistakes and the flaws in my home. He's the most important guest I've ever had. But now I wish he'd stayed away. I shook my head. Oh, what terrible thoughts to have about Jesus. I rushed back into the kitchen and started mixing up a new batch of bread dough. I also checked on the meat and poured out some wine. At first I was focused on my kitchen work, but then I heard talking. I heard laughing. I went to the door of the kitchen and I looked at the main room. There was Jesus, sitting by the fire. He was talking. He had a beautiful expression on his face. I could tell he was talking about God. Jesus had the most wonderful way of talking about God, like God was his own father, and a kind and loving father at that. Jesus could make God feel very near, not so far away in heaven. So for a moment, the sight of Jesus made me happy. But then I saw my sister. Mary was sitting on the floor right by Jesus' feet. She wasn't doing anything at all, just listening to him talk. She could have been helping him get cleaned up. She could have been working on that dirty rug. She could have been helping me in the kitchen. But no, she was just sitting down, while I was still on my feet, working so hard to make everything ready for Jesus. All at once, I was completely filled with anger. I hated my sister. She didn't care about the bread or anything. She left me to do all the work by myself. And Jesus didn't even notice, just like a man. He forgot all about me, the hard-working woman, and talked to Mary like there was all the time in the world and nothing to do to get dinner ready. Well, I charged right in there and spoke my mind. In fact, I shouted at Jesus. "Look at her," I yelled. "My lazy sister, just sitting there doing nothing. But I've been running around like a crazy person for the last 3 days. I've been working so hard to make everything perfect for you. I haven't gotten any sleep, and I'm so tired I can hardly think. But does that sister of mine do anything to help me? No, she just sits there and lets me do all the work. It's not fair. I deserve better than this. Tell her, Jesus. Tell her to get to work and help me out." Now that I look back on it, I'm amazed that Jesus didn't get angry at me. I was so rude to him, dragging him into the family quarrel, and I brought so much shame on my sister with what I said. But I wasn't in control of myself somehow. My anger and frustration took over my mind. That's why I shouted at Jesus in anger. But Jesus did not get angry back at me. He turned and looked at me. He saw me. He really saw me. He saw how tired I was. He saw how hard I worked. He saw how nervous I was about whether my house would be enough for him. He saw how nervous I was about whether I would be enough for him. Jesus didn't speak to me with anger. He spoke to me with kindness. "Martha," he said. His voice was so gentle. "Martha," he said again, "you worry so much. You want everything to be just right and perfect. But here I am in your house, and you're not enjoying my company at all. You don't experience me as a blessing, but as a burden. You want to be good enough for me, but if you had been listening, you'd know that isn't necessary. You didn't have to prove yourself to me. You don't have to be perfect for me. You don't have to have the cleanest house or the softest pillows or the tastiest food. I'm glad for your efforts, and I understand the honor you are trying to show me. But don't you realize that your efforts and your honor are actually keeping you away from me? You haven't smiled at me once since I've been in your home. It's all right if the bread is burned. It's all right if the rug is dirty. I'm not here for the bread or the rug. I'm here for you, Martha. Your hospitality is a wonderful gift, but I value your attention even more. You're a good cook, Martha, but I want to give you the bread of life. And the only way you can get it is if you slow down, sit still, and listen to my words. You don't have to work all the time. You don't have to give all the time. You can just be still and receive what I have to offer. At first, I was still angry. I felt Jesus was a man who didn't appreciate the hard work that women do. I wanted to complain and brag about my 3 days of cleaning and cooking and preparing. But then I stopped and thought about what he had said. He was right. I did all this work for my guest, but when my guest finally arrived, I ignored him. I really did care more about the burned bread and the dirty rug than about Jesus' wonderful words about his Father in heaven. I knew that Jesus would leave again on his travels soon. I was wasting my chance to be with him and listen to him. Jesus valued and honored my hard work, but Jesus valued and honored me even more than my work. I was offering Jesus my work instead of myself. But Jesus only wanted me, myself. Ordinary Martha is the most precious thing to him, even better than Martha's cooking and cleaning and hard work. Then I looked at my sister. You know how it is with sisters. Often we're competitive and jealous with each other. I looked at her and I saw how she made the right choice. She offered herself to Jesus. Herself, and not her work in place of herself. She listened to Jesus. She paid attention to Jesus. She welcomed Jesus the right way, like an honored guest. And in return, Jesus honored her. Mary made the right choice. I could have been angry at her too. I could have been jealous. Honestly, I'm amazed that I wasn't. Instead, it was like I was seeing my sister for the first time. Mary wasn't just my little sister and helper anymore. She wasn't someone who took care of the house only. She was a daughter of God and a friend of Jesus. She was someone who listened to God's word. I am the older sister, but that day, Mary taught me something. She taught me that all my efforts are worthless if I don't give to God the very best that I have, which is myself. And no clean house or a perfect meal can take the place of the words of Jesus. They are the best thing of all. Don't misunderstand me. I still value a clean house. I still take care of my garden. I still like to cook beautiful meals for my guests. But now I understand what my house and garden and cooking are for. I don't live for the house and the garden and the cooking. I live for the people who come to enjoy them. Most of all, I live for Jesus, who was the best guest I ever had.